Hi there, and welcome to Enhancing Human Experience. I'm Mark Phillips, and in this episode, it's all about therapy. If you've ever wondered what therapy is, how it can help you feel better, have a better experience in life, and improve your interpersonal relationships, then I know you're going to get a lot out of this episode. My guest today is Rachel Fabbi. Rachel is a licensed marriage and family therapist. She's also a certified alcohol and drug counselor. So in this episode, she shares what therapy is, how it can help us have better experiences in life, feel better about ourselves, and also improve our interpersonal relationships. And this accounts for all types of relationships. Marriage relationships, dating relationships, co-worker relationships. Even I got a little bit of a sense of relationships with ourselves, right? As we all know, it all starts there. And in this episode, Rachel talks about all of these things and really gives us some insights into how therapy can help us improve our experience in life. So a lot in this episode. I really enjoyed it, and I learned a lot too. Now, if you want to find out more about Rachel and her work, you can do so at rachelfabbi.com. That's RACHELFABBI.com. And one of the things Rachel talks about in this episode is how she's making therapy more accessible to more couples. And she talks about her current project and how you can learn more about that. But again, if you want to learn more about Rachel, visit rachelfabbi.com. I'll also have links in the show notes on my website beneath this episode at gmarkphillips.com. So I hope you enjoy the interview. I certainly did. Let's get into it. Rachel, thank you for coming by. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. This is fun.
Awesome. I cannot wait to, talk, really about what therapy is and how it can help everyone. Because it seems to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it almost, and this may be my impression, that it's almost for people that are at the end of the spectrum, maybe in turmoil or going through something.
Yeah.
But what do you see in your practice?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, what kind of people come to you?
So I think that's a really, really common belief about therapy is that, we have to do everything we possibly can to get better on our own. And then when we have no other option and we're just, at the end of our rope, or our relationship is at the end of the rope, and it's either we are getting divorced or we're going to therapy, I guess, like last resort. I think that's a really, really common belief. And so sometimes people do come in at that place where they say, I guess this is all
that's their last, that's like the ace in the hole kind of thing.
Yeah.
So my assumption isn't necessarily incorrect then.
I don't think so. Yeah. I think that's a very common belief about therapy. But then once people do start going to therapy, they think, why didn't I do this so long ago? This isn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. It's not, there's a lot of misconception just about what is going to go on. I think, there's a lot of shows that show therapists do, getting real deep, dark into this, like, kind of psychoanalytic thing. And sometimes that is what therapists do. And sometimes we go there. That's something that might come up, or that might be something that's helpful. But most of the time, it's just it's like untangling the knots. We get all wound up and knotty, and we get all, we have lots of things that kind of keep us from living our best life and keep us from being at the peak of our happiness and the peak of our success. And so a lot of times therapy is just kind of untying that stuff. So
would you say there are like easier knots to untie, and it sounds like there are harder knots with that deep, dark space?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Do you think people fear going into that, quote, deep, dark space?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, what do you call it in therapy? Or
Well, that's a good question. There's there's different ways of looking at that deep, dark space. Sometimes they call it the shadow side. Sometimes it's our subconscious. If it's our subconscious, it means we are not conscious of it. So we don't know what's going on down there. And, a lot of times that will kind of come up when it's that, what is keeping me back? Why aren't I happy? Why is my relationship not, just blooming and super happy and perfect? And we keep that stuff deep down inside that we don't even know it's hindering us. We don't even know it's there. So I'd say those are the harder knots to untangle, because we have to find them. And that's not always terrible. It's not a terrible thing.
Be aware, find them as being aware of them, or find out what they are.
Yeah, to find them and then to be aware of them and then to shine some light on them so that they can heal, so we can kind of figure out what to do from there.
See, and that's what really excites me as far as like getting better. I mean, finding ways to kind of undo those things. Let me ask you this, because I'm always curious about this. What is your take, and maybe the general therapy world's take on being aware of the problem or focusing on the problem to fix it, as opposed to focusing on the solution and just minimizing the focus on the problem? Is it necessary to know what the problem is my answer?
That is a great question, and I think that's another one of those things that sometimes can be a hindrance of, well, I'm trying to stay in the positive. I'm trying to stay happy. I'm trying to stay good. I'm not going to go talk to some therapist who's going to say, well, tell me about your mother.
Yeah, let's dump all of your baggage out on the table here. And
let's go deep and dark and get there real fast.
Yeah.
It's like, no, thank you. I don't want to do that. So, there's a huge variety of types of therapy. There's a type of therapy that's called solution-focused therapy, and that's all it is. It's just about finding how can I come from where I am right now and fix it. What can I do better? How can I, find what's already working for me and do more of that? How can I find the things that maybe aren't working and let some of that stuff go? And so really living in that solution and finding ways to apply that in different areas of our life. So there's that's a lot of therapy. A lot of therapy is about developing skills. I think that's a really big part of it. And just, it would be so wonderful and beautiful if from the time we were born, our parents just said, let me teach you how to deal with your emotions. Let me teach you how to deal with relationships. Let me teach you how to deal with frustration. I mean, just how do I deal with life in the healthiest way that's going to keep me going and not, knock me down.
Right.
So sometimes we have to just learn those skills as a grown-ups, and so I think a lot of time we just spend time on that. So that's one type of therapy too.
So it sounds like there's do all therapists, are they all kind of equally, I guess, able to do those, or do therapists specialize like doctors do? Like you say positive, like you said, what is solution focused versus maybe general skills?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think we do kind of find the thing that we love to do so much, and it's kind of, that might be a reflection of our own problems, you're
going to gravitate to what you like best, and you're not going to do something in your therapy that you hate. Obviously.
So when you're in grad school, they teach you all types of all these different forms of therapy, and so there's like relationship styles, there's psychoanalytic styles, there's a type called client-centered, which is just really, this kind of threads through all therapy, which is just creating a safe place of a non-judgmental attitude of, hey, I'm here to be your guide or your coach or your partner or your cheerleader or whatever my role is, but I'm going to do that because I really care about you. And I think most therapists really, truly do care about their clients. I know I do.
Sure.
Every single person that I meet with, I am there just to help them and help them find whatever is going to work best for them. So I might have my couple, styles that I like to do and that I feel most comfortable doing or that I find the most helpful. But I might not use all those styles with each different client. For one person, for a person struggling with depression, they're going to need something totally different than a person struggling with PTSD. There's going to be a different approach for both of those people. But the common thread that will go through all of that is that non-judgmental, just open, warm environment that helps people
so they can
grow.
Share and how many sessions maybe it's different for different people, do people open up? Are people
well, that's funny because sometimes people come into our initial intake where it's like, okay, we're just going to do our intake, we're going to ask you all about your history and all about why are you here, what do you want to get out of this, are you looking for some help with depression, are you looking to strengthen your relationship, kind of what do you want? And a lot of times I hear this over and over and over. People leave going, for one thing, they'll say, okay, that wasn't as bad. Like, oh gosh, I was dreading this. I was dreading it. Yeah. Oh, this is going to be terrible. Yes. I don't hate this as bad as I was fearing I would. I was so nervous. I've been thinking about this all week. I've been, I don't know what I'm going to say. And I didn't think I was going to have anything to say. And the other thing that people say all the time is, I did not think I was going to go there. I didn't think I was going to talk about that today. I thought I'd kind of scrape the surface, but
so they know when they're diving deep.
Yeah, when they kind of reveal something that they've maybe held a little tighter and thought, I'm not going to talk to this person. But I think really I think it matters how quickly the person feels safe in that environment. And so that just kind of speaks to what type of trauma that person may have had, what kind of experience they've had with trusting people. If they've had a generally kind of good experience with people, then they might trust you real quick. Or if you have a great chemistry or connection with them where the rapport is just real quickly kind of developed, then they might feel comfortable in that situation. But if they've had a lot of mistrust or abandonment or trauma or all those things that make someone not want to trust somebody, it might take a while, and that's totally okay. A good therapist will be willing to work through that and to know we don't have to rush this. This isn't something where you're not ready and I'm going to say, well, let's get deep into it. Like, I want to know all about it. Yeah, tell me about your trauma. Tell me about your childhood. That's not... That shouldn't be.
Yeah, it makes sense because you're there. Like, it's a healing environment. It's you're sensitive to those things. Yeah, you get the training and whatnot.
Right,
that makes sense.
And a therapist should be willing to be really patient with people and to not feel frustrated or not take it personally, but to really just kind of be alongside the client to move through those kind of steps.
I imagine because it requires probably a lot of empathy, a lot of like, hey, because sometimes in the world, it's like either keep up or fall behind. There's no no coddling. I don't want to use that word necessarily, but
it's true. I was just joking the other day about how I would be a terrible CrossFit coach. Sure. I would be horrible. I would say,
just lift at your own pace, right?
Yeah, do it at your own pace. Right. I don't want to push you too hard. This will kind of come from within. And for some people that might work really well, but for some people like me, I would go, okay,
it's
well.
Not like the environment. It kind of conjures up. They take these disparate ideas and put them together. It's like a Saturday Night Live skit or something. That's hilarious.
Yeah, and that goes to. That's the case for different styles of therapists too. Is that some therapists are more direct and let's move forward. They're more like a coach. They're going to be kind of more encouraging and I don't want to say pushy, but push you to really grow.
And push you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, because it is out of your comfort zone. That's true. And that's kind of something that a lot of therapists use to some extent is to kind of help people grow out of their comfort zone. We want people to grow and do better and leave us and be fine and have the skills on their own and not to become dependent on their therapist.
How often does that happen?
It can happen. It definitely can happen. I think sometimes it's okay that it does happen in some instances where, if a person has a really, really long history of not having someone who's been constant in their life or not had a safe environment, if they work with a therapist for several years and on and on and on, then if that's helping them to live a good life and to develop relationships outside of the therapy, that's not their only relationship or their only, the only person they rely on, I think, hey, good.
So it sounds like you're looking at an individual basis saying, hey, this person is here. It's not a problem that I'm helping them more than I would another client, say.
What do you mean?
As far as you're giving them more support and or connection than you would typically to other clients. It sounds like I want to say training wheels type style.
Yeah.
For being a human being.
Right.
So you kind of just use it judge it individually.
Yep. Absolutely. I think that you just have to. I think every client will have an individualized experience and just what is it that they need? What is it that's going to work best for them? And if that takes 5 sessions and they're like, hey, we've sorted it, we've untangled all the knots, we're doing great. If a couple comes, I see a lot of couples.
Right, because you do kind of want to chat about that because I want to get into the male-female dynamic and talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
But so...
and I also see homosexual couples too.
Oh, you do?
Mm-hmm, yeah, so just any sort of couple and mother-daughter relationships, family counseling.
So couples, so any kind of pairings.
Yeah, pairings or families. Because there's all, each individual has their own kind of knots, and the couple has its own knots in itself. So there's lots of things to untangle.
Well, and I imagine there's some commonalities. I mean, a pair is a pair, or an interpersonal dynamic is an interpersonal dynamic.
Yes.
To a degree.
Absolutely. And I find myself doing, teaching the same stuff to a mother-daughter couple, or, not couple, but a mother-daughter duo, pair, a couple who's been married for 60 years and a brand new relationship that has a brand new baby that aren't married, or, it's like the same skills apply to everybody. It's just interpersonal skills, and how can we best manage our communication? Communication
is that what it comes down to?
Oh my gosh, yes. I have kind of narrowed it down to like the 3 big things that people come in to couples or relationship counseling for is communication, always. The number one thing that people say, we're here because we can't communicate, or we're here because he doesn't communicate with me, or
doesn't even come in and say, hey, it's all my fault.
So bad, and my partner's perfect, and I just want, maybe sometimes, but mostly no. But it's communication is number one. That's really where people, and that makes me think, they really get that it could be better. The relationship could be better. And that communication is just a skill. It's not like you're either good at communicating or you're not. It's a skill that you learn.
And I'm glad you said that, because I see more and more things in any area of life. Whatever you're going to do, it can be learned. Everything's a skill. And I think for so many people, I know I used to live in this space of you either are or you aren't, you either have it or you don't. And then it kind of locks you in, and you're like, well, what's the point of even, if I don't have it, I don't have it.
Exactly. If I suck at communicating, why should I go to a therapist who's just going to yell at me and tell me how bad at communicating I am?
Right.
And that's, I think, a big misconception is, oh gosh, kind of back to that, I don't want to go, this is going to be terrible.
They're going to point fingers at me, it's going to be so
it's just going to be throwing me under the bus, and my wife telling me what a bad husband I am, and then the therapist jumping on board and telling me that I'm just as bad as my wife has always said. And that, it really is not the experience I hope that people have in therapy.
They probably had either their own mind is running down the rabbit hole, or they've had other experiences, not a therapy kind of experience, where it's been, well, my wife and her girlfriend ganged up on me, and I'm not going to get in another female dynamic like that. So I can certainly see that.
And I think like what you said about kind of going there internally, if someone comes in with the mindset of, I either am good at communicating or I'm not, well then, like you said, what's the point of even trying? Why should I even try and go talk with someone about getting better because I just suck at this? So if that's the idea coming in, then people get real resistant, and they get really defensive. But if you can come in and say, yeah, I do kind of suck sometimes at communicating. I mean, I yell a lot, or I shut down, or I don't know what to say. I freeze, and if you can have the willingness to really own that and say, but I want to get better at this. I love my partner so much. They deserve to have a person who communicates well. I deserve to have a person who communicates well. We're here to learn. We want to get better at this. Then I think, oh my gosh, yes, this is going to work. This is going to be so
They're
great.
willing to put the work in. They're willing to, because they see they're going to potentially lose this person they love because they don't have the skills. So how often does that happen when the person's like, hey, I know I need help. I know I need some skills.
Well, I'm so glad that you brought that up, because I think that is when people, it comes in, I would say maybe 20 to 25% of the time. I think therapy is becoming more socially acceptable.
And
I think people get it more. Yeah, me too. I've had some recent people that have come to see me that go, oh gosh, it's like, it makes me so happy, because it's like my heart just fills with happiness.
Everyone in therapy in the world to some level, is that what you're saying? Well, like a world of...
I've recently had some younger men coming in, like men in their 20s. And they say, my girlfriend and I are having a hard time in our relationship. I just want to be a better communicator. And I want to like sing hallelujah, because I am just like, this is awesome, the best time to come in. A couple who can come into therapy while things are good. For one thing, you are much more open to receive influence from each other. When you love each other, when things are happy and things are good, but you just want to, tune it up a little bit. You want to make things a little bit better. Oh my gosh, the improvement, how quickly people can improve from that is amazing. It's so fast. if you're waiting until, it's like my analogy I always use is, if you wait to put oil in your car, to put gas in your car, to check the engine, if you wait until your engine has exploded and then you bring it into the shop and you say, can you help me because my engine exploded? It's much harder to fix than to just bring it in for a tune-up.
But can it be fixed at that point? I mean,
it depends.
when the wounds or when the cuts or the words or the whatever or the actions have been so deep, is there a point when, I mean...
Yes, there's definitely a point where people go, this is not fixable.
Done because of you hurt me too bad, or you did this too bad.
We've like kind of, we were connected like this when we first married, or we first got together, or we first moved in together, or whatever, and we have just slowly disconnected, and then we've hurt each other, and so we're more disconnected, and then we stop communicating with each other, and then we're more disconnected, and then
the investment or the interest to get it better goes down, and then finally just separate.
And right, sometimes it's one partner who has been kind of going through this uncoupling for a long time, and then they finally go, you know what, I'm done. I have tried and tried and tried and tried, and I'm done trying. And then that's when their partner says, I'll do anything. I'll go to therapy with you. Back to
what you mentioned early on. As soon as it becomes like do or die, it's like, oh, no.
Yeah,
but
let's go to therapy. And so one kind of comes in begrudgingly, like, I guess, I'll go here because I want to give it one last shot. And those are the couples that come in that I think, to me, I see every person as like,
sure, like the potential to save every or help it.
Absolutely.
Totally optimistic for the save and the fix.
Yeah, and sometimes the fix is you're gonna just be happier apart. We gotta just make sure that you guys are nice enough to each other to raise children who are okay.
How do you know that? Where does that come?
That's not up to me. It's never really up to me. I just I'm there. That's why I always ask, what are you here for? What's your goal in coming today? Because if the goal is, hey, we want to co-parent in a respectful way, but we're not getting back together. I'm happy with that.
So they're driving the bus.
Totally.
You're just
totally.
Okay,
yes.
So it's totally their choice.
Yeah, because it makes sense. Yeah, obviously. I never consider myself to be an expert or in charge or the boss or anything like that. My job is just to take. I love this stuff so much. So I loved studying it in school. I love studying it in grad school. I read about it. I go to seminars. I do all this continuing education far beyond what it's expected or what's required for my licensure, because I love it. I love it so much. And so if I can be the one who reads all these books and goes to these seminars and then just take what I learn and give it to someone else and share it with them, then that's kind of the role I take when I'm meeting with people. Is let me just see what I can offer to you. But I think a lot of times we have the answers within ourselves anyway. So,
but we sometimes need people to help us bring them up. I sometimes think of therapists as like, where a pharmacist, you go to the pharmacist, like I've got this or whatever, or the doctor, and they're like, okay, prescribe this. And I sometimes think as a therapist, like you said, sounds like you've got all these tools and skill building exercises, and they tell you what they need or want.
Yeah.
Right? And you're like, try this, take this, do this.
Yeah, let's try this. Sometimes, it's kind of cool because sometimes people just in their talking, it's like they're watching the words come out of their mouth and then they go, oh, wait a minute, well, that makes sense. I don't even know why I was struggling with that because now that I say it out loud, it makes perfect sense. And so it's like I have done nothing. I'm just sitting there listening and providing the environment of non-judgmental, like positive regard, and they come up with it themselves.
Well, that sounds like the doctor. The doctor isn't necessarily healing per se. He's just providing the environment for healing or the conditions for healing. That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, and that's why it differs too from client to client, because someone might come in and go, I don't know what to do. Like,
so they're just like, okay, I don't know where to start.
Yeah, and so that's where I'll say, okay, here's what I know. Let me show you some ideas. Let's try this. Let's, pull out this worksheet and do this together. Most of the time we're not doing stuff like that, like kind of working through things, but sometimes we are. Sometimes that's really helpful. But other times they are totally driving the bus and are in complete control, and they're telling me what they are working on, and they sort it out themselves, and then they leave and go, well, thank you.
But again,
that was really helpful.
You kind of steered them or offered them this or that or other thing. Mm-hmm. So I want to touch back on the skills, because I think that sometimes there's an aversion to people, like, if you have like zero skills and you're maybe, I don't know, 30, 40, 50, and you've had these deeply ingrained habits, it's like, I don't want to put the time in to learn the skills. Like you said, it all depends on the individual. But what are you finding where people are kind of like, I sometimes think people have an aversion to do work in general and definitely inner work. I mean, if you've been living your life this way for so long, it becomes comfortable, and you're like,
right.
You mean I've got to like practice talking to people or communicating? I mean, where do you meet people at that?
Yeah. Well, if everything's fine in their life and they don't want anything to change, then they're not coming in for counseling. They're going to just they're cruising along. They're doing good. And they don't need to change. If they're fine and everybody around them is saying, hey, yeah, this is fine, then that's good. But usually people are saying, oh, I'm not as happy as I want to feel. I don't have the relationships I want to have. I'm not succeeding in work the way I want to, or, there's something going on. And so they're recognizing that something could be better. And that does not mean that you have to wait until everything is in the toilet before you come into counseling. Come in for therapy or counseling when things are all right. But if people come in and say, it's like if you were to go to a physical trainer and you said, or, a coach and say, I want to lose weight, but I'm not willing to exercise and I'm not willing to eat healthy. It's like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do hypnosis. I'm not going to do any of the options, but can you please fix me? Well, I mean, a therapist might say, oh, well, let's talk about why it's so scary to do those things. Why, what's blocking you from trying some exercise or from trying to eat healthier, and trying to maybe problem solve to find what is the barrier. But I think if you have a little bit of willingness to come in and say, things are not going as great as I want, or I want to live my best life, and that maybe is a little bit better than how it is right now, and then bring that willingness to try something new, and it's usually not as scary. It's not as scary, I don't think, as people. Yeah, I definitely
think there's a stigma, and like you said, you sometimes see people at the end of their ropes coming in. That's what I'm curious about, like, getting people over that fear. I mean, because it seems, well, on the same hand, I don't think people go to the doctor until it's do or die time.
I think so too. My tooth isn't so infected, it's bleeding everywhere, and fine, I'll go to the dentist.
Pain, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah, and then think about the person who goes to the dentist every 6 months for a checkup. Well, then they don't experience quite as much pain. They catch their, cavities as they're forming, they get a quick fill, and they're fine. It's like, it can really save you some pain and suffering to kind of go in for the checkup.
Almost like preventative type or like maintenance type.
Yeah, I mean, going to the auto shop and getting a oil change is kind of an inconvenience, but man, it beats having your engine blow up.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So, so back to the problem-focused or solution-focused.
Okay.
Tell me what you're kind of thinking about that. Like, is it necessary to talk about the problem or even know the problem before you can move on?
I would say sometimes yes for both of those, or for either one.
So it's necessary in some cases to know the problem, to uncover the root of it.
Yeah, sometimes I think it is, and I guess that's another one of those times where it's like it's individual, and so sometimes it's just like, hey, we just need to build some skills, look at the future, look at the solution, and then, that's pretty simple, that's pretty short, and we can do that quickly. If we're doing all that stuff, and we're going, let's not look at the past, and we're doing all those things, and it's not getting better.
That's what I was going to ask you. When do you know, when you're working with the client, that you need to go to the root? I mean, obviously that takes practice and skill on your part, but what signs are just the fact that it's not getting better?
Maybe that, or I think we kind of sometimes know that there's something underneath. Like, I guess another role I think of as the therapist is not only to provide that safe environment or to provide tools, but also just to kind of help the person step back away from their problem a little bit. So if we're looking at a painting like that close up, where our nose is up to the painting, we might be like, I see it perfectly clear. I mean, I see these colors right here.
It's 2 by 2.
Yeah,
that's great.
This is a really pretty picture. It's a little off focus, but so I mean, we can kind of see our world that close, and the beauty of having a third party or an outside person who has no emotional attachment to your family, to you. There's nothing that's keeping them looking at it up close, but can kind of help you step back and see the bigger picture, that's where a lot of those things kind of get uncovered. And so it's not like the painful digging things out necessarily. Sometimes it can bring up some emotion to go back and go, and I guess I think of it as kind of like finding patterns. And so that might be taking a step back and seeing, oh, this is not, this interaction I'm having with my husband is not the first time I've felt this way. I've felt this way my whole entire life. I felt like this with my parents and then in school.
See that repeating pattern.
Yeah, so sometimes that's where some of the untangling comes out, where it's not like we have to uncover this root, like this, suppressed memory or something terrible. Yeah, but just, oh yeah, I mean, this is something I've always struggled with, feeling not good enough. That's interesting. No wonder I struggle with that in my current relationship. Or I've had people who I don't think care about me because I felt that way as a child, and now I can't be convinced that people care about me. So it's something like that.
I certainly can see that, and that's why I think it's so interesting about life is, getting a different perspective in any type of thing, and then pulling back and looking at a different angle. It's like, is this really true, kind of a thing?
Right.
Is this really how it is?
That's another very common thing that I love to do. I think about a lot is like, what are my thoughts? What are my beliefs? And figuring out, right, is that true?
So much goes on in our head that it's like fabrication, and it just builds. And also, all throughout what you're sharing here is I'm getting the sense of like, the frog in the water that is slowly being turned up, and to the point where people don't know. Like you said, they're slowly getting into like more and more like dysfunction, I guess, for lack of a word, and then finally it's like broken.
Yes.
So, and that like you said, it would come back to the perspective, like what are you really seeing here, and how aware are you of what's happening here?
Yeah.
It's kind of it seems like a human tendency to like let things progress and progress and progress, and then all of a sudden,
right, and we're really good at going like pretending like nothing's happening, pretending like there is no problem.
We seem to be.
Yeah, because if we do that, then then it's a little less painful. If we just kind of stick our head in the ground, it's a little less painful, maybe.
There is definitely an aversion to like see the problem. I mean, I don't know if it's that we want to avoid problems, which I think is part of it. We want to stay comfortable. We want to avoid, maybe we fear bad news or fear, like, someone telling us, oh, it's you, or
right.
But defaults things that were going on in our brain.
Yeah, and I think that's, I mean, we could go deep into that kind of stuff, but I think a lot of it comes from our culture too, is that we're in this really shame-based culture of, don't take accountability, don't take responsibility for anything that you do. If you mess up, you're an idiot, or, it's like just so harsh. And so we've lost this ability to have compassion for people, for people who screw up, or for people who make mistakes, and for us to have compassion for them. And so we also have a hard time having compassion for ourselves. So when we cannot have compassion for ourselves, or when we have a ton of shame, we are just going to hold up the block to take any responsibility. So it takes a lot of vulnerability to do that, and to say, okay, maybe I am a part of this problem. Maybe I do have a hard time communicating.
That's a huge statement to say right there, because you're right. In a way, that's like, you're laying it all on the line right there. Like, okay, but then again, that's where all our power comes back to, taking full responsibility. I think about this all the time, that Darren Hardy, the publisher of Success Magazine, wrote this book called 100%/0%. And it's like, what percent of a relationship is your responsibility?
Oh, okay.
And people are all like, 50-50. And the high achievers are like, I'll take 51%. And then he's like, you know what? 100%. Make it 100% or it won't work.
Yes.
And that's a big statement, and there's a lot in there, but kind of ties in.
It does. I tell people that all the time. I say, we have a dual responsibility all the time. I have the responsibility to communicate clearly to you. I have a responsibility to make sure that my words are coming out right, and that I'm not attacking you, or that I'm not hurting your feelings, that I'm communicating in healthy ways. But I also have the responsibility to not interpret things wrong, to hear everything
the way
as
you're
an insult.
Interpreting them.
To hear them clearly. And I think we have a dual responsibility, and I apply that to so many things, where it's like we have both sides. The responsibility is ours on both sides, the listener and the speaker. And so it's like that. I love that, taking 100% responsibility.
In a way, it's kind of scary, and it's also really empowering.
It is.
Then it's all on us, right? I mean, hey.
Yeah. And we can get real comfortable in blaming everybody else and being like, my husband's the one.
To just let it, blame, and then your life never changes, and it's like, okay, well, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
It's easier until it sucks, and it's not easy anymore. And then when we start taking responsibility and apologizing when we mess up, or saying, I'm sorry, the way that came out wasn't how I meant it. Let me try that again. And that takes vulnerability. It takes humbleness and putting our ego to the side. But once that happens and our relationships blossom, it's like, oh my gosh, this is easier. This is hard. It's hard to do, but it's also, man, my life is easier. I feel so much happier now.
Well, and that's one thing that I don't think we know as human beings how good it can get, because if we've been living in a situation, I'm speaking from my own personal perspective, if I'm living in a situation for months and or years, you're like, okay, this is the norm, or this is as good as it gets.
Yeah.
I think helping each other see like what the possible good, how much better it could get. That's when life gets good, because I think everyone wants to be better and better and better, or have better experiences. It's like, but when you don't know what's out there, what the options are.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of where we're going. We're so lucky to be living in this time. It's like, we don't want to just be decently happy in our relationships. We want to be really happy in our relationships. And so a lot of times people aren't divorcing because things are terrible, but because they want better. They want to be better.
They want to make a better choice. Is that they?
Well, I think
realized...
they think. Yeah, sorry.
No, go ahead. No.
I think people see my relationship with my partner is not a wonderful relationship. It's kind of all right. I want wonderful. I'm out of here. I'm leaving this relationship. I'm going to find wonderful.
That almost sounds like, like we're in an instant gratification by it now. So is that kind of what you're saying? Is that they think the grass is always greener kind of a thing?
Yes, I think sometimes that can be out. I think if we can recognize, oh wait, I do want things to be better, I need to take responsibility and make things better for myself. I want a better experience at work, I need to change my attitude, or I need to change my job, or I need to do some work. It's more
of an internal basis as opposed to, I'm going to change you and this.
Yes,
and
yes. Oh, you, partner, are not making me happy enough. Well, I will just find a new partner.
Sure.
If we can stay in the relationship, if we can be in a relationship and say, hey, I want things to be better, so I'm going to go to an outside source with my partner and find out how we can make this better. My partner and I can make this better together. Well, then we get to have wonderful relationships. We get to have the ones that we already have bloom, because a lot of times we love that person so much, and it can be real painful to have the idea that, oh, it should be better, so I'm just going to leave you, because then we're kind of faced with it's not better always someplace else, and the grass is not always greener. But it's, like they say, the grass is greener where we water it. If we take care of our relationships and water our relationships, oh my gosh, we can have beautiful relationships with the person we're with.
I've heard that it's, and I always come back to this thinking of like, love is a verb, and it's like it takes, and maybe when the emotions are high when you first meet, and then the chemistry is really bubbly, and then things then it's easy work then. It kind of seems like downhill then, but then maybe when it starts to level off a bit, it's like it's going to need a little push here, right?
Yes, because if we lived our relationships 10 years in the way we did when we first met them, we'd be going on dates, we would be giving them compliments, we would be seeing them. I mean, one of the things too, it's like that dual responsibility again, is seeing them for the wonderful person that they are. If we're looking at them and going, oh gosh,
focusing
I hate
on the things that annoy, or the quote unquote
so annoying. Yeah, and we see it as annoying versus just something, just something that they have. That's not the greatest.
You don't, when it's new, you don't even see it.
You don't focus on it.
What thing,
Yeah, you're focusing on all the great stuff and all the potential and all this wonderful things, and you're sharing about yourself, you're asking questions to each other, you're sharing how much you love about each other. Those are the things that kind of disappear after so long, and people stop going on dates, or they stop sharing how much they love each other, or they stop seeing each other as the amazing person they are. They stop asking questions about each other. It's like they don't know who the other person is anymore. And so no wonder their connection has gotten so far apart, and it's,
Do you think that's a human thing, or do you think it's driven, do you think like the way that our culture is, where we're instant gratification, where we buy it now? I mean, what is it more like in our being to be that way, or are we influenced a lot by instant, we could get a little more?
I don't know. I'm probably a combination of so much.
I guess that would be nurture nature kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, for one thing, we're living so much longer than we were originally, so we have these relationships that, we used to get married real young, have babies, and die.
Yeah,
and so now we have a lot longer to put up with our partner if we're going to, be in a marriage for 70 years.
And another part of it, and I don't know how much of a factor this is, we are much more mobile these days.
Yeah.
Not only can we be anywhere digitally in social media, but we can be anywhere physically in the world. I think in days of long ago, there was like less options for us. Now I don't know if that's a factor.
Yeah, I would definitely say it is.
I certainly can't help the situation when you have, when you see 8 billion people on the planet and you're like,
Yes, and that can get all distorted with the internet, and people can look and they can make relationships, they can have fake relationships, they're having, pornography addiction and all this kind of stuff because it's at our fingertips and we, it's so easy to get, and our brains don't quite know the difference between real and, fake, and so it gets the same sort of gratification from looking at all this fake stuff or these fake relationships, and it gets confusing. So I definitely think,
and then it feeds into probably the real life relationships and adds that level of dysfunction. It's like, okay, or it certainly doesn't help this. It taints the water, so to speak.
And that it's hard to be nurturing and watering your grass in your yard if you're looking elsewhere, if you're looking at everybody else and looking at how great they all look on the surface. Well, then we're forgetting about really truly how great we have it, or the great things about the person we're with, and we get bitter, and it can kind of spiral. Absolutely, I think it definitely can taint the relationship. So okay, so you talked about 3 things that you see as a common themes. Now recap that again, because I want to also have you share some communication tools or skills or mindsets that are generally helpful to anyone listening. Okay, well, to recap the 3, so I only got to 1. I got a little sidetracked. So thank you for bringing that back up. So the first one is communication. That's a big one. And then connection, I kind of talked about that, is just, that's a lot of times what people say they're coming in for counseling to just reconnect. Because they have kind of drifted apart. So that's different than communication, where it's more... and it's like communication helps us to connect. When we're connected, we communicate more easily. So they both play together. And then the third one is conflict management. It's like
what's that? Give us a little snippet of what that is.
Maybe that would be, when I have a problem, I come to my partner and I say, I'm really upset about this, and they go, fine, I just can't do anything right, and then they walk out the door.
Internalize it and say that kind of a thing.
Yep. And so that would be an example of something that someone might come in for counseling to say, this pattern happens. We've been doing this for 10 years. Yeah, I want it to be different. And so that, it's still communication, really, but it's
like you said, it's a little bit differentiated. So 3, communication, connection, and conflict management.
Yep, that's usually what people, I find people kind of report as the reason that they're coming in. And yes, they all play together. There's tools for all of them. I think one of the, I guess you could call it a tool, but one of the perspectives that I think is most important for all of them is like what we were talking about with taking responsibility and seeing the other person and empathizing with them and understanding where they're coming from. And so it's kind of just working. Yes, there's tools for all these things. There's communication tools, there's conflict management tools, there's, connection tools and all that kind of thing. But there's, I think, without kind of coming from a place of saying, I am willing to try some of these things, or I'm willing to hear my partner out, then it's really hard to implement those tools. And so I think that's probably the most...
So being able to, so again, it's like empathy, sounds like. So being able to like see where they're coming from.
Yeah, giving the person the benefit of the doubt. And that can come from practicing gratitude with that person, sharing your love for them, sharing your admiration of them and your fondness of them. So, you kind of have these tools you can do. Okay, well, I'm gonna start looking for the good things in my partner and practicing gratitude, or I'm gonna start asking them about their day. I'm gonna start just trying these like communication or these connection tools. Well, then the empathy and the compassion can come second. It can come after I've been practicing these things and kind of going through the motions. So they play on each other, I think.
Would you say that it's a byproduct of that, or is it more of a separate thing that kind of comes into play that you introduce, like so after they're making gratitude list or appreciation list? Is that helping them build the empathy?
Yes.
Is that what it's doing?
I think so. I think when you're doing that, when you're kind of, let's say, I don't want to like my partner. I'm mad at them.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, if I focus on what's good about them and I write those lists, or I start to say things out loud like, hey, thank you so much for putting the dishes away. I really appreciate that. Well, now not only have I given them a little bit of love, which makes them feel happier, I've also noticed myself. I've noticed it and I've said it out loud.
It improves our perspective too.
Yeah, exactly. So it does become a byproduct. It's a skill that I'm doing. I'm kind of going through the motions and sharing my appreciation for someone. But in the meantime, the byproduct is we both feel happier. And now we both are more willing to share fondness and admiration of each other. You know, it's kind of like a cycle.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about life is that it's easy to cycle down by engaging in, I guess, thinking it doesn't support the situations and experiences we want, or whatever, practices, whatever. But it's like this, every day we kind of have to retune, refocus, get our centers where we want to go. And it's easy to kind of track off.
Exactly. And that's like times that by 2 in a couple, because both of them have
their own things going on.
Yeah, and both of them are building up resentments, or both of them are, getting a little bit,
because they're getting if one person gets farther apart, you get double,
so
exponentially.
Right. Exactly. And so the good news is that you reverse one of those things, or you reverse a couple of those things, and it grows back together.
Faster,
yeah. And when you're doing that with someone that if you're coming in and doing that at a time when things are okay already, oh my gosh, it's much quicker than if you
I love how you say that, because you're right. I mean, anything in life, catching it before it becomes a major catastrophe.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I'm working on, and that I really want to that I'm going to be giving to the world, is that I want to starting with the Boise area.
Well, sure. Take over the Boise area first, then total world domination.
Yeah. But if I could make this something where people can come and just have this casual environment where they can learn about the same skills that I teach to couple after couple after couple, if we can do that all at one time.
When they're not in crisis mode.
Yeah.
I mean, how awesome would that be?
Yeah. So the way I'm going to have this formatted is just to have an in-home party. So it's just a couple's group in someone's home. So you would have a host, house, and and you can have appetizers and snacks and dinner or whatever, and drinks or whatever you want to have, and sit around with your friends. And so let's say you have, you and your partner and a couple other couples, and everyone can hang out and share in the experience of learning these skills. And, we'd have some little tool practice between you and your partner.
It sounds like you're going to blend the fun and the tools. And that's why I think it's a great idea. And because it almost seems like you're going to have to make it a fun atmosphere. I'm sure you do this in therapy to a degree too. But to
sometimes
capture,
try to. That's not always. Yeah.
But that's why I say, I mean, to entice people and show them, hey, it can be a little bit better.
Yeah.
There's some tools.
Yeah.
That's why I say I think all of us need tools, and that's why
I think so too.
I really love you sharing the empathy tool and putting yourself into the person's perspective. And I think that's for everyone at every walk of life. How can benefit them.
Oh my gosh. And the more we can practice empathy and compassion for other people, the more we can practice it for ourselves.
I agree.
Vice versa. The more we can be compassionate with ourselves, the easier it is to be compassionate with other people. And that is an exponential, wonderful thing to have experienced, because now you're feeling happier, you're feeling more connected. It's the things that I think, relationships aside, that's the biggest complaint I hear from so many people is I don't feel happy and I don't feel connected. I feel alone, I feel isolated, I don't feel connected to myself, I don't feel connected to God or my higher power, I don't feel connected to my partners or my friends. I am disconnected. And man, we have a society just built for disconnection right now, even though we feel like we're connecting.
Well, it's a connection in a way, digital connection, but is it a real, authentic connection?
Yeah, I would argue probably not, because not everybody, but a lot of people are saying I feel disconnected.
And so you're seeing that. I would totally agree with that. I mean, that seems like what I'm seeing. And it's like the illusion of connection, but it doesn't, it's not fulfilling on some deep level. Yeah. It's like surface.
Yes. And we have kind of changed from, our heart and feeling connected or sharing vulnerability and love and connection with our partners or the world or our families, to this kind of head space where we're thinking it all. We're thinking how to connect, or we're being up here in our ego and we're trying to portray this great image, and we've lost that vulnerability and the kind of the gooey part where we really get to feel loved, and we get to feel love for someone else. And that over and over and over, study after study says that is like the goodness of life, is to feel connected and to feel loved. Loved for other people, loved by people. That's what it's about. So if I can make a place where, I think so too. It's the thing that makes me the most excited. It's the thing that makes me the happiest. And when I see a couple that I've been seeing in therapy come together and connect with each other, it's like, it's the greatest thing in the entire world. I was
going to say, I can imagine it fills you up so much to see them working out issues.
Yes, I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world. I mean, it's like the days that you can think of, like when people collectively kind of say is the most amazing day. It's like the birth of their child. It's like that love, that unconditional love, and just embrace weddings. It's just to see someone be there, saying I love you, and then to be witnessed, to be able to witness a couple going through that and like reconnecting that just true simple love for each other is just, it is just amazing.
I can imagine. Were you always a couples therapist and or relationship therapist, or did you start in a different vein of therapy?
Well, I started, my master's degree is in marriage and family therapy. So that was where I got my professional training was in marriage and family therapy. So I've been doing couples therapy for about 10 years. Before that, and I see a lot of people, I see lots of individuals.
Right, you
I
do
groups
individual, but...
Okay. Yep. So I see a lot of, couples and some families and a bunch of individuals. I do group therapy, that kind of thing. Before I was doing therapy, before I was practicing and with a licensure, I was working, I worked in detox facilities, drug and alcohol, rehabilitation, inpatient, outpatient. Before that, I was working in the community. I lived in Hawaii, and so I worked with a lot of people with real chronic symptoms, serious mental illnesses like schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, and people just...
So it sounds like you've had a wide range of...
I have. I love it. I have loved every sliver of the path. Yeah, working with kids, working with adolescents, working with elderly, working with homeless people, working with drug addicts. I love all of it.
Do you find that other therapists say that too, or do some of your colleagues say, hey, I just don't... obviously it's an individual thing too.
I think so, yeah.
But some of those cases sound challenging, more challenging than say, working with a couple that's kind of coming back together.
Right. It's, you gotta do your thing, like whatever works best for you. Some people love working with kids, and that is right where they, like, that makes them so happy. They're helping people before they've developed these patterns for 25 years or whatever, and being able to teach them the skills as children is like such a wonderful thing. And some people are like, I don't know if I really want to do kids, so
it seems like an individual thing.
Yeah, right? Absolutely.
That's why I say it sounds like you're a fascinating individual, being able to do that and love and enjoy all spectrums.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't want to mess up this quote, but I think it's a Brene Brown quote of just, it's hard to hate people close up. It's hard to hate people close up, but I think it's also easy to love people when you're close up to them. And so
that's good.
that has been a blessing. I wouldn't say I, woke up one day and said, I'm going to work with homeless schizophrenia, people with schizophrenia who are homeless. That wasn't necessarily what I kind of set out to do, but that's where I wound up, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is an amazing population to work with. And when you're close up, you have empathy and you have compassion, and then if you're coming from a place of problem solving, of how do I help this person, and so for that person, getting a house is going to be number one goal. For someone who is living in a beautiful mansion, then the goal for them is going to be something totally different, so but for each person, they're equally beautiful. They're equally important. Their needs are equally important. So yeah, I love it. I love
awesome.
it. Awesome.
That's so awesome. So to talk a little bit more about what you're working on, like you touched on it a little bit earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Give us a little sense of maybe timeline or a little more about it.
Well, I'm ready to do this. I've done one of these groups already for a group of people at my church, and it went really well. It was so much fun. It was really amazing, and it was funny because I was expecting to have a bunch of young couples come in, and most of the couples, all of them had been married. I think had been together for over 20 years, and a few of them had been married for 50 years each. A couple of these couples, like, this is so cool, and it was so neat to see because it's like, well, this kind of demonstrates these are the couples who stay together. They're ones who put effort into it. Right? Yeah, over and I'm sure that, but so I'm ready to do these now. I'm ready to start doing these in-home couples groups.
I think it's going to be a hit because, like I say, who doesn't want better relationships and more connection and more of those honest, juicy things that you talk about?
Right, and I'm hoping to take out some of the fear of that. So if you're in a relationship and you're saying to your partner, let's go in for counseling, and they're saying, no, we don't need it, we're not that bad off, or it's just going to be terrible, we're going to have to air all our dirty laundry, I don't want everybody outside of our couple knowing about us. This is going to be totally different because you're just hanging out with your friends and you don't have to talk about your relationship. It's not airing your dirty laundry, it's not throwing your partner under the bus. It really is just, let's hang out and learn some skills and practice them, and learn different ways to communicate, learn different ways to manage conflict, and just some ways to feel more connected with each other, which we all want that.
We do, and like you said, you're serving the tools, and it's like take it if you want it. Here it is.
Exactly.
I as you're talking about that, I envision these closet personal development, and maybe they're listening to couples information or podcast or whatever, and they're kind of doing it behind the scenes because sometimes it is a little bit, I guess, uncomfortable to put out there and say, I go to therapy now, or this or that. I mean, it's fine. I think people are kind of like closet consuming some of these personal development things. I know
lots of people go to therapy. I go to therapy.
So you even have the therapist.
Oh my gosh, yes. So amazing. Therapists are awesome.
They are awesome. What point in your career is this something like early on, or is this something, hey, you're as a therapist going to a therapist? When did you start?
Well, when I was in grad school, they required it. When you got to a certain place in school, you would, I guess it was when we were into our internship. So if you're going to go out and start doing therapy with people, you need to make sure that your stuff is taken care of. You can't be pulling in your dirty, stuff from your past, or your negative beliefs, or whatever you've got going on, and you can't go dirty up everybody else that you're trying to see and take care of. So it was required then, and I mean, I can really feel for people who are so apprehensive, because I was like, I guess I don't really have anything I need to work on, which is seriously laughable at this point.
Right. What do you look for in a how do you find a therapist? As a therapist, how do you go shopping for a therapist?
Well, I think number one is, do you feel comfortable with that person? Do you guys click? If you have a therapist that you don't feel comfortable sharing with, they're just not your person, don't waste your time, don't waste their time. Just find someone that you connect with, really. I think that's number one, because you want it to be a place that you feel comfortable sharing. There's so many places that you can find what the therapist's kind of specialties are. So you asked about
places
that earlier.
Online, or
Psychology Today is one that you can find, and you just look up your therapist, and if you're struggling with an eating disorder, you can find eating disorders
in your local area. You go and you'll pare it down.
Yeah. So you can just type in couples therapy Meridian, Idaho, and you'll find a bunch of people who do couples therapy in Meridian, Idaho. It's really cool. So that's a thing where that's awesome. Technology is great for.
Sure. So then you just call them up and say, hey, I want to come in and chat with you. It sounds like it's common in the therapist world to look for that fit as well. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, we want to be able to help. You mean for the client?
From the therapist perspective. For clients looking for a good fit, feel good. Yeah. It sounds like therapists are looking for a good fit, feel good too.
Right. You want the first appointment should be about, or I think it's best if it's about, hey, what are you coming in for, and how can I best serve you? And if I'm not the one that's best for you, let me find someone who's going to be better for you. So yeah, definitely. I think on the therapist part, it's our responsibility too to make sure that we will be helpful for that person. And if we're not, then there's a whole bunch of other people. If
Sure,
someone comes in,
maybe they could refer to someone.
Yeah, exactly. The idea is that it's the client's best interest. That's all that matters. It's not about my ego and like, well, I want to be the one that fixes
I can
that
fix
person.
it. I can fix anybody, right?
No, right, exactly. If we come that place, then we're burnt out. That's not a great place to start from. But just find someone that you connect with. The therapist will be a part of that too, and saying, yes, I can be the person that will work with you, or that can be helpful.
Do you ever have situations where the client wants to work with you and you don't think you can benefit them? How often does that happen?
Yeah, I haven't had that happen very often. I am not shy about referring someone to somebody else who specializes in something
who can help them better.
So, and sometimes we have to kind of come back together. If things are not moving along the way we'd like them to, or the couple's not doing better, they're doing worse, or something like that.
After a certain period of time.
I think it's important to always kind of check in with each other and say, how is this working for you guys? Is this helpful? If not, we might take a different approach. Maybe I can refer you to somebody else. Maybe we got to kind of problem solve and pick what's the best next step after that. So that can happen for sure.
So and I'll put links to when as things evolve here with your course and with your upcoming stuff that you're working on in the show notes on my website.
Okay.
But before we go, I just want to touch on this because it's something that I've been curious about. Where does therapy and you mentioned this earlier, like a life coach or a performance coach, how do they interact and where does the line become? Because I know those are very different spheres.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on that?
That's a good question.
As far as helping people, because it sounds like a lot of things that you're talking about, helping people have better lives and improve their. So what's your sense of that?
Yeah, I don't know much about life coaches.
Okay.
I work with someone who's a life coach,
and
so I'm not exactly sure the different
like what their realm is or how what they that's fair.
I know that I would say that therapists do a lot of that sort of life coaching.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, but I'm not sure. I don't want to take away from life coaches and kind of assume that we're doing what they're doing without really knowing what it is that they're doing. I've never worked with one, but I'd love to know.
From perspective, because from a therapist who is in a different sphere in a sense.
Yeah.
But, ultimately everything kind of comes back to helping people solve their be better and live better.
Exactly. And you might work with a life coach and a therapist and work on two
and I think
different
people
kind of
do I think they can complement each other. I know that when I listen to people who are really into and really see the value of having a team around them, whether it's your accountant, your lawyer, your therapist, your life coach, and
your
all
nutritionist,
your nutritionist, because we are a whole looking at a holistic being, and a lot of things that I've been thinking about recently is what are you eating, what's your diet, what's your mental diet, because it all affects everything,
right?
And if anything is out of whack, it's you're not going to be operating at peak levels.
Yeah.
So I just,
And we can kind of tweak all of those
we
little
can
things.
tweak all of them, and it all goes in the hopper, doesn't it? Like every positive thing you do to tweak it up.
Yeah. And so if therapy or couples counseling is something that's going to just make you feel a little bit better, or clean out some of that old stuff, I think therapists might do that more than a life coach. I'm not sure, but it seems like that might be some place where we kind of spend some time of just kind of cleaning it out or getting rid of some of that old stuff or old beliefs, and maybe life coaches do that a lot too. I'm not sure.
Right, and like I say, that's why I was just curious.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Me too, Mark. Thank you.
Too.
Oh, good. I'm glad. I hope this can be helpful. I hope it takes a little bit of the fear out of going to a therapist or counselor.
And that's what I think it will, because I think we do, and I know that I have this I guess stigma that's like, okay, well, like we talked about, you don't need to do it until it's like do or die. Like I can fix it. I can fix it. I'll get this book and I'll get that book and this. But so I think that does take a little bit of the like, it's not what I thought it was.
Yeah.
It's a different perspective.
Yeah, and it's not terrible to have someone on your side who just can be warm with you and open to you all the time. It's so nice. I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, what'd you think? Did you learn some things about therapy that you didn't know? I know that I certainly did. And I really appreciate her sharing what goes on in therapy and what happens in that relationship, and the fact that we're in charge, right? And we come with the agenda and the outcomes that we want, and the therapist then uses the tools and resources they have to help us achieve that. I really, really love that. So I want to thank Rachel again for coming by the podcast and sharing her expertise and wisdom with us. Again, if you want to find show notes to this episode, you can do so at gmarkphillips.com. I'll have links to Rachel's website and show notes for this episode. Thanks so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Until next time, all the best, health, wealth, and success. Bye-bye.